Welcome, Jess, to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel like this is like full circle because I remember you mentioning this podcast and like coming up with the name, and now here we are. Now here you are.
Oh my God, I know. So Jess and I met in a leadership container by Christina the Channel, and I really had hyper focus on where I wanted to go with the podcast. And yeah, Between Portals kind of was birthed in the middle of that. And so now it's like all this new energy coming through with the year. And I feel very honored to be able to interview you. And it was just so special to be a part of that like container. And it does feel full circle because it's like, okay, that was the idea. And now this is like the launch of it.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, you mentioned like the energy of this new year for me, or we were supposed to do this podcast recording in 2023, and then that got, we rescheduled for 2024, which I'm so grateful for. Everything always divinely works out. But my energy in 2024 for me personally has been so much lighter and like better and more productive and this more fluid than 2023. So I'm excited that it's
Yeah,
now.
I feel that strongly too because and it feels really subtle for me because it's like uh usually I like going hot and I'm like a very extremist kind of person and I'm like I'm going to go full into all of this, but I feel like I've just subtly been like just kind of like a little bit more, another baby step, a little doing this. And like, yeah, I would have pushed to like make that our first scheduled date work. But I was like, you know what? This feels forced. I'm going to feel stressed. It's not going to be the right energy. And then it feels like so much better to have it like now. I'm sure you know your numerology. What year are you in?
Oh, I do. So I'm in a year 7. And I know we're collective year 8. And I honestly am, I know a lot of, because last year we were collective year 7. And I know a lot of people are like, their 7s may have not been what maybe they were looking for, but I'm so excited for it. Like this introspective spirituality, connecting within, and then like combining that with the year 8 of like this abundance and your power. And yeah, I'm here for my year 7.
Oh, that's exciting. I am in a
Yeah.
six. I'm in a 6. So
So that was me last year.
yeah. Oh, that's true. And yeah, I don't know. And I was going back to like my last year 6, and I was like, oh, if that has anything to do with like what is going to be happening this year, I'm like, that was quite intense. So I really like looking at those kind of like energies and stuff. But um, yeah,
But
and
we're
it's
in a
interesting.
much more evolved state, I feel. So I feel like your year 6 is going to be totally much a lot different energetically than it was, I don't know, however many years that was. But my year 6 was great too. Despite, like some challenges, it honestly was great.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. And I think
Yeah.
being in an 8 year for all of us is like, I don't know, it feels quite exciting, like with the abundance and money focused and stuff. And I've definitely been feeling that. And I think that I felt this too with like numerology. Like I feel like my numbers, now that I think about it, like overlaps into like the middle of the year. Like in the middle of last year, I already felt like I wanted to be home and feel grounded and feel like settling in and not travel as much. And that was like me moving from my 5 to my 6. So it's really, I don't know, it's just kind of when I was like actually learning about all of the numbers and what it meant and the seasons of it, I was like, oh, you could really feel into it, which obviously we
Well,
love the energy, but
which there's so much beauty in that because you saying that. So for me, my 6th year, I traveled a ton. I wasn't even home. I gave up my home. So for me, like home was like such a different meaning.
um,
So it's just so interesting how like energy plays out, for like different people. And obviously my 6th year was in a 7 collective. And so now yours is in like this 8. But yeah, no, I just always love the uniqueness that like
ah,
it
that
all
it brings.
has.
Do you
Mm-hmm.
feel like it like um was you finding more like home within yourself then if you were traveling a lot? How do you think that like played
Um,
out?
I do. Yes, it definitely was home within myself. Because of just a lot of, life shifts and stuff like that, and leading to like loss. And then also me going to a retreat and just really like shedding everything that like when I went home to my physical home in Florida, which I absolutely loved, I created this vibe, my dog lived there, before he passed, and all these, like I had so much connection to it that when I went back, I was like, this isn't home anymore. And it was like, wow, like everything that I thought was home just kind of basically like shattered and fell apart. And so then really it just made me like realize that home is always within, like me honoring my heart, my soul, where it's guiding me. And yes, it always will be someplace physical. Like I will be always living in like a physical house or something. I don't foresee myself, being the nature type camping with no house, but you never know.
That's true. You can
And
think that and you're like, here I am in the woods in a cabin. I don't know.
unless I become like a mermaid, and letting my Pisces self, be able to live in water, because I love the water. But yeah, so like home for me really was like kind of honoring the home within me and everything that my heart and soul was telling me to do, even when it didn't make sense. And I was like, but I'm comfortable here. This is my home, and then like letting that shatter and moving, across country.
Yeah, Jesus. Because you moved from Florida and then you spent a good chunk of time in California, right?
Yeah, so I moved from Florida and then, yeah, drove out west. And that's where everything is like, I always love this, again, connection to the divine, to this higher source, and like receiving their messages and, you know, signs through other people, through our experiences. And when my dog passed, I went out there for a month and I was like,
Mhm.
or sorry, I went out there for a week. But when I was out there for a week, I was like, oh, I kind of want to come out here for a month, just because like the energy, something within me was just like, okay, do this for a month. And then my dad passed, and then I ended up
Oh.
going to a retreat, and I went back out there, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna come back out for a month. Like that was like the nudge that felt
Mm.
easy for me to like. And sometimes you have to hear things a couple times to like then
Mhm.
make the decision. And so that was like my second time. And then that's when I went home and I was like, whoa, this is not home. So then that nudged me to look at places, and I was like, well, I'm gonna do an Airbnb. Like, I'm not ready to commit permanently, and let's just see. And so then 1 month led into 4 months. Um, and then I was gonna just fly out there. But then the amount of people that were like, Jessica, why are you not driving? Like, I mean, driving. And I was like, if I hear one more person ask you why I'm not driving, I was like, this is a sign. And I was like,
Yeah.
at that time, like 2 years ago, I got my car. Like I got a new car because I was like, oh, I want to travel. And then here I
Mhm.
am, like, have this perfect opportunity and I'm going to fly. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to travel. And then I ended up driving across country, and it was by myself, and it was the best experience ever.
Oh.
So it was just one of those things that like just remaining open, but then actually responding, to
Mm.
like the messages and the signs, and then it being this something better that I never actually thought. It was never on my radar at all
Yeah.
in the beginning of the year.
Yeah. Okay, because you mentioned like signs a lot from other people. Like
Mm-hmm.
how when you receive messages like from the divine and your higher self and stuff, how does that so strongly come? Like, what are the main pathways that comes through? Is it a lot through other people, or how do you tune in to be like, yeah, that's for me?
Um, uh, it, sometimes it could be from someone. A lot of times it's a knowing.
Okay.
So like if someone says something and then it's like like how does, or like a feeling, like how do I, like whenever I hear that thing or see that thing on a billboard or whatever it is,
Yeah.
like how am I feeling? What is the knowing that's coming up within my body to be like, oh, like I'm curious, like that kind of. I don't even, it just like unfolds in that way. Or if I'm like asking, my higher self, source, whatever, like, should I make this decision? Should I do this? Should I do that? Um, a lot of times I just hear, you know, just hear,
Mm.
it within me, or I use like a pendulum, to
Yes.
help add a little bit extra clarity when I'm like really in my head versus like, when you're like too involved in like big decisions and you're like, I can't determine what it is. So,
Yeah. I just started using a pendulum like in the last few months because like back with like my beginning spiritual journey, I had always thought that like some tools will work for some people and some won't for me. And for some reason, like pendulums, I always thought like worked better for others. And it was like my sister was really good at it. I could never get like the energy to move with it. I don't know. It just like never resonated. And I always had it in a story of like, oh, it's just not my tool. And then I'm like, well, that seemed like a dumb story to have. So I've been like using the pendulum more, and it's quite exciting to use because you're like, it's so clear. Like it's just boom, boom. And then I can ask like questions a little bit differently, or like get a reverse yes or no. And then it's like, it's the same kind of answer. And I'm like, okay, this is actually pretty cool.
Well, and it just helps, the more you use it, like be able to trust. Because you could be like, if you're receiving a yes or a no, and then if it's something where you're following through with an aligned action, and then you're like, what? Like, why, like, why did this like come through? But sometimes that, even if it wasn't how we expected it, that actually then got us to where we're supposed to be next. So I guess I like don't overthink and everything. And I do trust and even like the yeses and the nos and then taking those steps. But yeah, I love the pendulum.
Yeah. Yeah, same. So when you're in California, like, and you decided to extend your stay and you were like listening to those nudges, like what were like the kind of standout like moments where you're like, oh, this is why I'm here? Like was there like some magical moments within those things of like, this is the reason why, like looking back?
That's a great question. Well, when I did because when I was like looking originally at Airbnbs for a certain amount of time, I found this one that I loved. Like, I also didn't want to like be in this settled energy. And like Airbnb, like my home I had created, I mentioned like a vibe and this like lower talks kind of like sacred space. And so I was kind of looking for that when I was like looking at Airbnbs, and I found this one. And I used to live out in California for a couple of years in the same area. And so I was like, oh, this is in the best location. I can walk, to the beach. I can do all this. And they have like stainless steel pots. They don't use fragrance, like just all of these things that I was like, this is amazing. But it was a 2-month minimum. So then that's kind of then which led to, and I was like, you know what, let me just see what dates do they have open. And so that was just 4 months, because then someone was obviously renting it after me, and it was right before the holidays. And so I was like, you know what, I'll book this. I'm going to put my house on the market, because I was like, I'm not, or to rent, but I'm not going to book this unless I know someone's, going to rent it. And actually, I think I had to book it first to then get a renter. Because I was like, I'm going to trust that someone's going to rent my house. So so I was like, I'm going to trust that someone's going to rent my house. Like, I'm going to make this happen. And then I like listed my house, not even a week. The most divine tenants were like wanted to rent it furnished. There was like one thing that they said they didn't want to bring, and it was the bed. And I was like, yeah, that's no problem. My sister needed a bed, so I ended up giving her my bed. And then I was like, oh shoot, I need to buy a new computer chair. There's a rip. And she's like, no, that's actually the other piece of furniture that I want to bring. And so like, I was like, yeah, like just stuff like this you can't. And I was like, okay, so I don't need to buy a new chair. Like, my sister gets this, like I get to like not just get rid of the bed, but like it actually gets to go to someone, that I know and that is like seeking a good bed. It's a lower talks bed, like all these things. So then anyways, so then I like get out to California, and I'm out there and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why am I start, then it's like, like settling in. And I'm like, why am I here?
Oh, yes.
Like, what did I do? Like, I was like, I know that didn't feel like home, but I was like, this, like, like I was just exhausted from driving across country, like, and then my car, thankfully, had issues, but it was after I got into California. It was not long after. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I here? But then like, I was like, well, I'm here for 4 months. I could always change if I like absolutely needed to, but I was like, I'm going to surrender into this and like do all this. But then, I started, walking to the beach, walking to the farmer's market, like doing the things that brought me joy. I joined a boxing gym. And so then like, again, like it felt home, because like I was doing the things that I absolutely loved, that then, made that specific time feel like, like it was the right decision. So
I know exactly what that feeling feels like, because when I had sold my house in New York and booked my like a one-way flight to Bali, and was just like, I'm just gonna go with the flow and travel. When I had first landed there, I was like, there was many times along that travel path, but like specifically at the beginning a lot, it was just like, what am I doing with my life? Like, what even is this? Like, what's good? Like, what does this even mean? Was this a good idea? Like, I know, but like inside, that if I chose to do anything else, like, and I wonder if this is kind of what you thought too, is like, I knew that if I chose to do any other option or like the safer option or this lot more logical or whatnot, like I knew that was wrong. But like I had those moments where you're like, what even is this? Like, why am I here? But I think those practices, like definitely me walking for sure, finding a cafe. I feel like walking, cafe, and movement are all things that like anywhere I am, as long as I can find those things to like nestle into, I feel okay. Like I feel regulated. I feel like more home is created within those elements for me, which is kind of very specific. But yeah, that moment's like a little bit frightening when it comes because I think your system is just like in shock a little bit. Like you went for it, you're doing it, and then you're like, oh shit, like we're in it, we decided, you know?
Well, because your heart and your soul is telling you like yes, 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 but then like, our human aspect of us
Yeah.
and our brain is like, what are like what are you doing? And it doesn't make sense. So the things that usually don't make sense are like
Uh-huh.
then my signs that like, yeah, that's what you need to do. Because like it doesn't make it's like literally doesn't make sense. Because like again, like where like the worlds that we're in and like all the things that we're stimulated to believe and like keep us in this box, like that's what our brain is keeping us in and how we're showing up every day and living. And when we can disconnect from that, like there's nothing wrong obviously with our brains are powerful, like if we can rewire
Mhm.
them, like like our thoughts and all of that. But when we can disconnect and like actually then tap into our heart and have that like connection, then it's like, whoa, actually what am I even doing? Like then that is like, that's that feeling that you had mentioned that I also felt like if I were to stay in this like comfortable that is safe,
Mhm.
like it's soul sucking. I was like, my soul
Mhm.
will literally like, yeah, I'll be fine. But I was like, I don't want to just be fine.
Mhm.
I was like, I want to live. And so, and like one of the things that I had experienced with the losses was if I were to die tomorrow, like, would I be
Mm.
happy, with the choices that I'm making? And I was like, actually, no, I want to be doing this. I want to be living. I want to, so like that put things into perspective too.
Yeah, hugely. You had mentioned connecting to your heart and what's your I guess your go-to or the most powerful way you connect to like your soul and your heart? Is there like a practice you do or is there like what's like yeah, how do
I,
you connect
I
there?
feel like I feel like it involves a lot of things.
Mhm.
One is like doing the things then that like bring me joy, for the most part. But to be able to get to that state is also feeling all emotions and processing all emotions. But then to even process and feel all of those emotions is then what am I doing, to then
Yeah.
connect to my heart. And a lot of that I feel like is connecting in nature. Like not being, like really connecting to nature, like not being on my phone, disconnecting. So then I can hear the thoughts, I can feel my body, as the signs and the messages are coming through. And then journaling. So journaling
Mm.
is like, I go through seasons with journaling, and I'm in this very heavy season of journaling again, which I love. And just like getting out everything,
Mhm.
whatever it is that comes out, just journaling, and just like being really reflective. And then, yeah, processing emotions and like going through waves of whatever those were. Last year, a lot of that was processing anger. For a lot of people, I feel like for me, I can speak on myself, was I masked anger with sadness, and it's a
Uh,
lot easier for me to cry, for me, like just for me to feel that versus like the hate, the anger, the upset, the mad, and even at things that you love, like, even me being angry at God, me being angry at my dad who passed, me, like, and not feeling
yeah.
guilty. So like really truly being able to process that versus holding on to it. So then I'm in this more like free, open, connected space with myself. And then like everything around me that is like also energetically, like coming at me. So then I can like really discern and be connected to my body. So I feel like it's like a little bit of like everything. And then of course, like, eating well and doing all those things so I can like really
Yeah.
tap in. So like and then
It's
meditating, so, and then like
right.
energy healing. So it's like everything I feel like coming together like in my little puzzle that then like helps me connect back within.
Yeah, yeah, you're like it's like everything that you do, but also very specific, but it's broad, but
Yeah.
So,
So
oh, the part that you had said really stuck out to me because I feel this when you said that you masked anger with sadness. That's like I think that's such a like fuck like that's such a powerful thing. Like I think I've gotten to the point where I finally have like allowed myself to like feel sadness and feel emotion, and I'm not yet, I feel, at that point where it's like, okay, yes, now you can feel emotion, but like where's the part that you feel the anger? Because like I think I personally like I just like don't get angry. And I think that's one of those untapped emotions where I've talked about this like a few times with different people the last couple of weeks. And even like when I was with my parents at Christmas, I was like, I had said this to my dad, and he was like, "Oh, I'll get you to feel anger. Like we'll go, like we'll get some boxing because like he like did fighting and boxing, and he's had like anger issues when he was younger. So it's I think it's like an emotion that comes easier to men for some reason, like it, in that explosive kind of energy. But for I guess us as women, it can be something that is not so, it's not really an approved emotion, it's that kind of like be palatable kind of situation. But how did you start tapping into your anger? Like, is there something that that helped you do that? Because this is something that's coming up for me, so this is my sign currently.
see, because like the more, and so this is like kind of leads to that sign, like because the
Yeah.
more times you hear it, and I actually
Uh-huh.
had two high energy healing sessions. Um, well, actually, one might have not been a high, but I think Christina had told me, and I don't know if it was not an activate, it was probably in a different container. And she was
Mm.
like, you need to process anger. And then I had a high session with someone else around the similar time. She's like, Jessica, you need to process anger. And I was like, I'm like you. I was like, I'm not an angry person. Like, I'm this happy
Mm-hmm.
go, like,
Yeah,
this happy
hello.
joy. Yeah, go with the flow. Like, I'm like, and I'm sad. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
like sadness, like I can feel that and I can cry like no other, but I had to, and I was like punching a pillow and punching my bed, or like screaming into a pillow and like punching my bed just really didn't, I had tried that and I did that, when my dad passed, and, like I like
Yeah.
literally like but it wasn't in like that sense of like releasing, it was releasing some anger.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so then I was like, okay, how can I process this anger? I didn't know I had anger to process. I didn't know what anger I was processing.
Mm.
So I just went to boxing, and that's why I signed up for the boxing gym. And I was like, okay, I've heard that I need to process anger. What can I do? Just go to the bag. So I was like, just punching, like just getting out. Like it started out with like the daily things, there's always little things, that come up, maybe that you can like release. And I think at that time, like I was still overseeing my dad's business. And so like literally everything just like kept coming up and just like doing that. And then I would set an intention every time I went into boxing. I'm like, okay, I want to release this from whatever came up in the day or whatever. And
Mm.
then finally things would just come out that I had no idea. Like I was mad at God. I'm like, God, how can you put us
Mm.
here? Why are we here? Why do people get cancer? Why do we die? Well, like what is the point of living? I'm like, what, like all of these
Ugh.
things. And then like something so powerful, like a lot of us too can feel guilty. And the same thing with my dad, like he's gone, and I had all this guilt for running his estate. It was a shit show. And I was like, how could you leave me this mess? And then like not feeling guilty that I can still be mad at him even though he's not here and living, and it's okay. And
Ugh.
so like giving myself that permission, because that helped me release it. Or else if I didn't give myself that permission, I would still be holding on to it
You'd
and
be
feeling
stuck.
guilty. We would
Mm-hmm.
be stuck. But here's the thing, since releasing it, I'm still connected to God. I'm still connected to source. I still receive signs from my dad. And it's pretty powerful because now, like my dad, like all the things that were 3D that I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is just like not like, just like even limiting belief wise, money, business, and all that. I'm like, okay, we're going to rewrite this story, and I want to partner with you with money, and we're going to do it. I want you to see where I was coming from, because like trying to be more abundant and like going through the work that we were doing. So anyways, that's kind of how the whole anger came out, was really boxing. So your dad is onto something.
Boxing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too because like when this had started, because things like this happen like with me in layers. So like when I had first started my travels, I had gotten such the intuitive pull to go and do like Muay Thai and stuff. So like I did a bunch of sessions when I was in Bali of like Muay Thai and boxing and like these HIIT workouts and stuff. And it was like this, and that I think at the very end tail of my travels, like that's what I was like really into. And I started to do that here, but then like touched away from it. And so I think it's kind of like that sign to kind of go back to that. But yeah, I think that's it's something that I think can really like unlock so much for us if we like, and I think Christina talks about this, like going full into the emotion instead of just scratching the surface. And I think for a lot of the time in my own existence, it's been staying at like the very neutral, like head above water, like let's not go too deep into the emotions. Cause I had seen a lot of people in my life very close to me really go through those lows and depths and highs. And I was like, well, that's unsafe. So let's just keep myself here. And then it gets trapped in things. So it's, geez, like, yeah. So I'm going to definitely pick up boxing again. Okay, so from losing your dad and your dog too, it's in the same year, right?
In the same year, and then my
Ooh.
cousin, I mean, not in the same calendar year, but within like a year of that, then my cousin passed as well.
Fuck.
So yeah, so it definitely was like just very, life was just everything with loss, grief, everything, like it's something everyone experiences so differently.
Mhm.
And then, but it also for me, because I mean, I know so many people have lost people. And then of course, like I have a sister, who also lost, my dad, and like just how we even like we had a different relationship with him and how like we
Mm.
grieve and just how like differently like that shows. And then also like the choices that we make, like how do we view things after such, like loss. And so I can see, because in the beginning of like the grief, I got into like this, like I had mentioned, like, God, like, why are we here? Why are we living? Like I literally got into the space of, why am I living? I have nothing
Mm.
to live for anymore. It's just me. I don't have my dad. I don't have my dog. What is
Mhm.
the purpose of me living? Because my dad is now pain free, but I feel all of this pain, like all of this pain. And I was like, what is the point of being here? I was like, I could just go join them. And at the time, like I felt like I had to be very careful. And this is even with the anger, like having a safe space and someone that you can talk to, because like there's so
Mhm.
like, like even just talking in that therapy can really help. And so yeah, just being able to like do all that was able to then just like, you know, shatter like all of like
Yeah.
just everything.
What did you find? Have you found an answer or answers to those questions of of those really really big questions that you had during
Like,
all
why are we
that?
living?
Yeah, like why are you here? Like have you been like, "Oh, this is it," or have you like where are you at with that right now?
Oh, that's a great question. No, well, so then that was, kind of what I did was, since it shattered, like
Yeah.
all of that. And I was like, I refuse to be in this dark, deep hole of like depression. I mean,
Yeah.
but like, I'm not judging anyone who is going through that. And I felt that, but thankfully was able to overturn that and change my
Mhm.
perspective. Um, but I mean, I don't know if I have like the clue, the real
Tell
answer.
us, Jess. What is
I mean, I feel like, it is a gift being here, for us to be
Yeah.
able to feel like the emotion, like, the lows honestly lead to some of the greatest highs. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
if I could reverse my dad passing, the loss and stuff like that, I would, but I can't. And those lows, like there was a gift within him passing.
Mm.
And although he's not here physically, like I'm still connected to him. And so like, it's just more like, I mean, I guess there's beauty in like the emotions, the beauty in the experience, like, the love and like just really being able, I feel, and that's when I was like, okay, well, I don't think we came here to live in pain. Like, I think, yes, we're going to experience pain as part of the human experience, but I don't think we came here to literally live miserably and in pain. And I was like, so I'm going to rewrite this story. I believe I can live and do whatever I want. I can have whatever I want.
Mhm.
And so now I'm going to show up in that way and co create in that way. And
Yeah.
that's what I guess makes life worth living, because then like again it's like
Yeah.
tapping back into your body and your soul and your heart, and then you're actually following that. And like versus like it was kind of a permission slip, which a lot of people wait until something unfortunate happens, to be like, I don't, I'm glad you said fuck before because I was gonna cuss and I was like, I'm not gonna do
Oh,
it. But like,
yeah.
I'm like, I don't give a fuck anymore about what people think. Like, this is my
Uh-huh.
life. They are not living my life. And if something happens or whatever, then they were in my life for a season and then they left for, like a reason. And so
Right.
I will meet people that I'm supposed to meet by doing aligned
Yeah.
actions, how we met and how, like, and just doing things like that and going out to California and all of that. So,
Yeah. I like what you said there, that like you don't think that we are meant to be in pain. Like it's not this like dark experience that we're meant to have here, but yeah, we are meant to feel all of the emotions possible, which we do in a given day, but
it's not fun
but
always, but yeah.
yeah, but it's, I guess, at the same, on the same coin or the opposite side is like that's what keeps it. That's what makes it worthwhile and exciting, and that you do have those really like intense waves and stuff that you get to ride out, and yeah, really like celebrate those highs because you do and you have experienced those lows. And that contrast really gives us like that kind of like perspective. Yeah, which is huge. So you had mentioned your energy and Ahai.
Mhm.
I want to talk about like you also provide Ahai for other people, and like talk about that. What is it? I want to talk about my experience with receiving your Ahai, but
Mhm.
I'd love for you to expand on that a little bit and how you got into it.
Yeah. So, again, I think I had like, I mean, I feel like things always happen. Again, things can come through friends and all of that. So, really, my spiritual journey started right before I think I turned 30, like right before my like Saturn return. And I
Mhm.
had a friend in college and she was doing this like free group astrology thing. So I joined, and there was a few of us on the call and she read my chart, and she was like, she's like, you're like very psychic, and like just started going off on all these things. And I was like, huh? I feel so
You're like
like
me.
at that moment, I was like, I felt so disconnected again because like I wasn't connected,
Mhm.
to my body. And my journey started with like the hormone side and like all of that. So like the physical, and I was like, what? Like I don't even know what I want to do, like just all these things. And so from there, honestly, that was like what flipped the switch. And I was like, I'm going to find out how I can, tap into my psychic abilities. But at that same time, because I've been following Christina for a while, she
Uh-huh.
started switching from the nutrition side of things. And she came
Oh,
out like spiritually with all this stuff. And so I was like, huh. So it honestly was like so perfect for me, because as she was like releasing these next things of like how programs and courses of how to like tap into like your psychic abilities and all these things,
yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. So like that kind of unfolded beautifully with like her also going down that path. And then of course being like in her energy and following her and receiving like energy healing, from her, then she released Ahai, which is a form modality of energy healing. So
Mm,
a lot of people I think are familiar with Reiki, which is channeled on the fifth dimension, Ahai is channeled on the seventh dimension, and really accessing that frequency of miracles, and then bringing that down onto the earth plane. And so I had experienced it, just by receiving it first. And like, I mean, I had like the first time I received energy healing, I had like wrist pain and I correlated it to like the Apple Watch and stuff that I was wearing. And then like
mhm.
whenever I wouldn't wear it, it would get better, but then it would still like flare up. And then like one session of like energy healing, like literally cleared it. And then like just like some other things, then I just started doing it. And then like, because part of also receiving energy healing is, depending on who energy healer you're working with, it also um, opens up access to the Akashic record so you can channel down intuitive messages. And so then I was receiving intuitive messages, which I had mentioned to Heidi earlier with like processing this anger. So like, message, like things
Mm,
like that, like, coming down. And so then just actually whatever came through, like taking that like aligned action and all of that. And I just started to realize how profound like energy healing was helping me shift my life. And it was when I started this journey, like balancing my hormones, and I got my period. And I thought once I got my period, I was like, this is it. Like it was just I honestly thought it was going to change everything. And then when I got my cycle, I was like, something still felt missing. And so then that's like how all this unfolded. And it was the energy healing, the spirituality, the connection to myself, the joy, like all of that. And so then Christina, she channeled Ahai on Lionsgate 2020. And she had her first round, but that was the year or like kind of leading up to, anyways, I think when all that released, it was the losses and stuff like that I was experiencing, and just my dad getting diagnosed with cancer. So I didn't do that one. And then I think I went through like her second one, which was then right after my dad had passed. And so again, I always feel like divinely, like sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I would have done that before he, but I'm like, there's always, you know, like I would have not cured him. Although Ahai is pretty powerful, and we can tap into, again, accessing, you know, DNA upgrades, you know, cellular, like renewing the cells, like all of improving cellular health, all of that. And cutting energetic cords, which, you know, a lot of cancer and stuff like that. Like my dad had tumors on his adrenals and his lungs. And so like, I mean, I literally, like, our lungs is like our life force. And then of course, like, you know, toxins and stuff like that. But then like our adrenals is stress. And it's like all of that, like, is energetic, you know, connections and stuff too, as long as like physical changes, you know, needed to be made. So anyways, just going, you know, and receiving energy healing, you know, through all of that, and just really like witnessing like all the transformation, you know, that was like happening on like an energetic level, but then like physical level, and then like the things that were showing up, like manifesting in my life, because like I'm no longer carrying like the cords, the trauma, like all of that. And like my energetic bubble is like you know, like putting out a different like energy wave and frequency. And so then I'm attracting, you know, the things that I actually have always desired without like things like blocking me. So it really gets to the root of all of it. So then I like went through Ahai level 1, and then I did level 2. And then it took me a while to actually get like, because we had to do our practice clients and all that. And again, like self-doubt like creeped in, like, am I good enough? You know, like, and the thing is it felt so easy for me. And I like questioned, like, am I good enough? But like everything felt so easy. Whenever I was like even doing my practice clients, like the messages that would come through, I was like, how is this happening? Like I literally was just like mind blown. And I was like, how is this happening? And then like I would say something, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And sometimes I'd be like, do I even want to share this card? But then I would share it and they're like, oh my God. And so I'm like, okay, I need to just trust, you know, in that like connection. But and then, you know, witnessing, you know, miracles happening in other people's lives, you know, through energy healing. So then I was like, who am I? I was like, this has changed my life so much. Like, why am I not sharing this? You know? Because my background is, you know, in the mortgage industry, like in corporate, you know, for the past 13 plus years. And so I was like, this was a totally different thing. And I had tried the nutrition thing, and that quote unquote failed, but it didn't fail, you know, like it was just like leading me all, you know, to where I'm at now. So yeah, so now I have, you know, when I was out in California, I did events out there, which was super fun. And then trying to coordinate some, you know, in Florida. I'll be going back to California for a little bit this year. And then yeah, just doing one-on-one sessions remotely too.
Yeah. And like it's very I think that it makes like once you shift in, because that was like similar to my journey too, where like once you realize like in your spiritual journey or like things that are energy, and I mean, I come from a medical background, so it's like, duh, that things are energy, because it's like the field around us, even when we're putting like the heart monitors on and stuff, it's like reading the electrical, you know, it's reading the energy. So I think the energy piece is like one of those last things that people really don't think about, or until you keep getting those nudges, or you keep trying everything that has failed, and then you're like, okay, what's the actual root of the problem, or what is like what's underneath it. And like the energy piece is like the biggest part of it all, because like it is the thing. So I love that you connected it back to your dad and the different areas where we get sick and where things are trapped in our body, and how it can tell us like, okay, there's something there for us that could be shifted with energy. But it also has to be your willingness too. And so I think that those pieces are very important for like all of us when we're moving forward to like kind of tune into like what's tune into the body of like what's aching, what's the issues, and then see like where those energy roots are. And I started experiencing a high just this last year because I had just found Christina just last year, I think. And so I've experienced some of her like collective group healings, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so then when we were in the container together, and when I signed up for your guys' synergy, and received a high from you, and I just recently got attuned to a high level 1. So I know. So I've been able to actually feel, because it's taken a lot, like you had said, if it felt too easy. So I felt like, oh, something must have been wrong, or like I
Yeah.
must not be doing it right. Because other types of energy stuff that I do, I had channeled light language like a couple of years ago, and I was like, no, it came easy. And it's like the same thing now. I'm like learning to kind of trust that easy flow of like actually being able to feel it in my body and being like, oh no, it's not just in my head of what I feel, but like trusting that knowing. And then when I received it from you, and then the messages that I got from you helped me so much in that like short amount of time with that little session. But so do you feel like all of this like journey that you've had, or like your next chapter, I guess, within this year? Because I know that your word is abundance this year.
Yes.
Do you think that you're moving into, I mean, you provide your energy sessions for people remotely, and then you also are still doing mortgage lending. Like what are you envisioning for this year, and what do you want to like provide for people?
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of things too, is like even in like in the space of like I don't know, like in our like just any space really that you can be in, and it's like this leading towards like, especially like if abundance or whatever, and it's like the only way to achieve that is like doing your own thing. And so like I thought that, and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be successful if I don't do, like, and because back when I started the nutrition, I left the mortgage industry, started that, did not work out. And then I was afraid, of that happening again. But I'm also a manifesting generator, and this is like really, understanding yourself, and then not really caring about what other people think or if it doesn't make sense. Because like you can sometimes too, if you like you hear something, then it's like, ooh, that does not feel good. Like that's also your intuition like telling you things. So anyways, I love helping people. And so I divinely was led into, I was in the mortgage industry for like 10 years at the time, and then got licensed on the sales side. Never
Yeah.
thought I'd be doing that, but I love helping people. And so then with my background, and then at the same time, energy healing unfolding in that, like when you go to purchase a home, like, I mean, there's guidelines we have to follow, and
Mm-hmm.
you got to fit into a box. No one fits into a box. We don't fit into a box in other areas. Like when you go to buy a home, you're also not going to fit into a box. And so it's like really getting creative, even within the guidelines and stuff like that of what people have. And then there's so many people involved in a transaction that it can be stressful at times. Um,
Absolutely.
or or there's things that I cannot even explain that happen on my end that I'm like, I don't know how this got approved. Like this got ran. I was like, per guidelines, this says that, like, and I'm like, I like literally, it's like a miracle. I
Mm.
just can't even like. People have been declined at other lenders. They come to me. I get them approved. Like with just who I partner. It's like I don't even know how to explain it. And so
Mm.
like, I then was like, you know what? I'm like good at my job, and I love helping people, and like this part like actually does, like fulfill me too, and I don't want to close this chapter. And again, abundance is like kind of the word that I'm embodying, and I'm like, and I have this portal open of money, and clients are flowing to me. I'm not like stressing out like chasing. So like I'm in this
Yeah.
open attract. I was like, why am I going to close this down when like I'm actually helping so many people? I love who I work with, and then at the same time I get to do a high like the traditional sense way of like having like a one-on-one session or like doing a group healing session. But I was like, I'm going to utilize this on the mortgage side now too. And like, use that, because like our homes, like everything is energy. I had mentioned even when I went to California, like the home that I was staying in had to like energetically be like in alignment, because how you feel in a home can make, like change everything. Just like what we're wearing, everything's energy, what
Yeah.
you said. And so being able to like clear old families energies, or just being able to like, tap into Ahai and be like, okay, can you just make this loan close like on time, like whatever, whatever, like make this person get it done in some miraculous way, and cutting,
Yeah.
like cords. And like, it's that part. I'm like, you know what? This is awesome. I am not
Uh,
like your average mortgage person. And so I actually stepped into that like this year, 2024. I mean, I've been
mhm.
doing loans, but I was like, maybe gonna like not do that as much. But I was like, no, I'm gonna tap into this, and I'm bringing a height into this, like, because that is like one of the, I know the universe and like wants more of this to be shared. And I was,
Yeah.
one of the things is like, I don't want to not share this. And I didn't want to hide under mortgages because I've had so much experience. Like, I know I'm good at it. And so I was like, oh, I'm just going to bridge them. I want to take all my passions, like with the lower tax, the high, all of it, like helping people purchase a home, and then like bridge it all. So that's where I'm at
That
now.
that is so fucking smart. Like, because I think it goes back to like uh and this is like the struggle that I've had, where it's just like, oh, you can being spiritual is being this way, or like you have to like forget this way of doing things and you just do it this way. And I think that is what we fucking need, is like the more that everyone starts to awaken and become more spiritual and in tuned, you want to work with people that are still in the 3D, the things that we need to do, like buy a home, but also be like energetically attuned and be able to like help move the energy in the way that you want to. And I think it's so beautiful that like you're meshing those two worlds instead of thinking that it has to only look one way, and like opening yourself up to being like, wait, I can hold both of these two and they're actually complementary to each other. I think that's so incredible. And it's absolutely necessary, because I know when I had bought my house, it is so stressful. There's so many things that you don't understand. There's so many like people involved and like repeated like paperwork. I just like had no idea that it was as much as what it was going to be. I was like, why is this so complicated? And so I think to have somebody like you to like help you through that process, in a position that I had done, like it would have been so helpful. And I think that's so cool. So when you were talking about like the homes, do you perform a height on the homes too? And like, uh, I don't know if I
Yeah.
heard that
Like
correctly.
clear,
Okay.
yeah, like clear spaces, clear
Yeah.
energies. I mean, because energy is everywhere. Again, even
Yeah.
mentioning remote sessions, you don't have to actually be in the physical place.
Yeah.
But like if I'm going into a home, or, like rent, like the Airbnb and like stuff like that, like clearing, using a high and clearing old energy, if someone had some sort of trauma, like everything happens, like, like
Hmm.
anything can, like the home is holding
Yeah.
that energy within the walls. And so, yeah, basically doing a high, cutting cords and all that from the home.
Oh, that is beautiful. Cause like you're when you move into a new space, like that is a new start for you or whoever's in that. That's like a new
Mm-hmm.
chapter for you. It's a new space. So like you'll want that like energy to be like fresh and feel good. And so having that energetic like reset by somebody is going to be like, that's just will help even more, like that powerful kind of like yeah, that newness of an energy. You don't want old shit coming from like the people that have like lived there, and that old drama. Like if it does, it affects you. Like it completely does. And even like, what was it? Someone, I don't know what, I don't even, I'm gonna botch it, but it was like, I think, I don't know if it was Christina said it or something about like you can have, or maybe it was an astrologer, you can have I don't even know. But anyways, I think this applies. I don't know why I'm like need to share this, but it's like the maybe the full moon energy or the energy that's there is going to be there whether you realize it or not, and it's going to affect you whether you realize it or not. And so if the more that we are like aware of like, oh, okay, I can actually work with the energy that's actually there or clear the energy, is just going to help ease like your experience with whatever, whatever you want to do, like amplify it. So that is so cool. So how do people like work with you within that space? Do they contact you specifically, or yeah?
Yes. So I have right now, I'm on Instagram as my name, JJ, and then my last name, Erceg, Erceg. And then my home page, which is a lot easier to find, and then can direct you to my personal page where I share like more of like the, personal growth, transformation, the high, more like the energetic focus is that. And then Home This Way is the home page that I like, again, just like when you're in alignment to like and like being open, like things just like flow. And like I had this like channeled like all the messages, like being like, I'm like your guide in real life, like being like your home
I'm
guide
not
in
the
real
physical
life, like
being.
our guides that we like, connect to, but like I get to bridge that and like bring it here down right now. And so like basically my bio has that in it, but Home This Way on Instagram also will connect you to me. And then in there I have links to websites, offerings. I would give the website link, but I'm also like in this like death and rebirth phase of I
saw.
had hired this website designer back in the day when I started nutrition. And I, wish I could go back and take it and be like, why did I invest so much money in a website when I didn't even like take off or do anything? And like, like you are attached to, so again, like attachments, we hold on to these things. So I was like, I need to let this go. It's done. Like it served you. You learned so many lessons. You're not this person. You grew, your energy has shifted. So anyways, I merged everything, but the website is like a Kajabi website that I need to redirect. I just haven't done it yet because I'm still trying to let go of the old website. So
That's
when
okay.
that happens, all the links are in the bio for
Okay.
all the offerings for Ahai. If someone's interested in purchasing a home, wants to know more about homes, any of that.
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
yeah.
And I love the way that you talk about that though, because I have like tried and quote unquote failed at so many different things of like, oh, maybe I want to do this. And so like I invest in this program, or I'm like, maybe I want to do this kind of thing. And I've definitely have been through like a lot of phases of like rebranding and like redoing, excuse me, like redirecting and no, oh, that's kind of what I want to do, but not really. And I think that I don't know, we can just really judge ourselves like really harshly when you see other people like do one thing and it seems they do one thing and it take off, or you're like, oh, I wish I would have just done that and not this and not wasted time or whatever. And it was like a huge block that I had to get past to like allow myself to be like, okay, just because that failed or that wasn't quite right or it didn't take off doesn't mean that what you are going to do next or what you feel called to do this time is going to be the same. And also it's just like us getting a little bit closer and more clear of what we want to do. So I absolutely love that you talked about your nutrition stuff, because I feel that too, because you're like, why did I waste that much money? I had built several websites and like done so many things. You're like, what? But it's like things that you think that you needed, or things that you were told that like you needed to do or try, and you're like, actually that was like super not true. But yeah, letting that go can be quite difficult because you're like, but yeah, so I think that's a really important thing for all of us to kind of like yeah, just keep trying, just keep failing at things, just keep finding your way through, and I think that just like that trial and error, like we're gonna eventually get to like exactly the groove that we're meant to be in.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like that was like me hiding. It was easy to build the website first, do all this versus being like, this is what I'm doing. These are my offerings. So this time we did it completely different. And so, yeah, like what you had mentioned, like where everyone's at, if you're looking at someone, you're like, how did they release that and they take off? Like, you don't know what happened maybe 5 years ago when that person tried to start a business and learned the hard way that, it then like failed and all that. So like there's so much behind nuances of behind everything. And then like our energy, our limiting beliefs and all the things that we're blocking from us to even be able to receive. So I love it.
Yeah. Oh, that's something I wanted to ask you. You talked about limiting beliefs. What is your favorite way that like because you talked about rewriting a few different stories throughout this conversation. Like what's your favorite way that you help yourself like create a different story in your head, or remove those limiting beliefs?
Yeah. So this one came fast, and the season that I feel like I'm in. So journaling a lot is really just dumping out what even like whatever that limiting belief is and what I think what is my current belief of that, whatever that situation is. So for instance, like the theme of, I think, money right now. So yeah, so like letting that go, but then visualizing. So I've really been visualizing too into like, what is it that I'm calling in? And then like, that's already my reality now. And then that just helps shift things.
Ooh, So do you have
Mm-hmm.
do you specifically try to like meditate and visualize for a certain amount of time, or how does the
So
visualize?
I just put on binaural beats.
Yeah.
I don't listen to a lot of recorded meditations, to be honest.
Hmm.
But I will, like, I've listened, to some, and some are transformational, and part of like the brain rewiring process that I went through was a meditation. But
Hmm.
then, I think you get to find like a groove and then really connect with what works for you. So I just put on binaural beats and I just lay there. A lot of times too, like if I'm not necessarily like seeing and like visualizing, part of that too, and I want to make this clear because I think so many times, and I think part of like the spirituality and the psychic connection is like, I don't have that gift. Like I can't actually see. Like, I mean, I don't always necessarily see like me with a house on the beach with, like my
Yeah.
partner, like whatever. Like
Yeah.
I really am tapping into that feeling. And like even
Uh,
just like that like energy, like it's like the energy too that I just feel, and like I just know it's this whatever I'm calling in, like it's all of that is like within, that energetic like container that I'm like really honing in on. And so then that is creating that feeling. And then, by the journaling, like letting the limiting beliefs or whatever it is, like present itself of being like, wow, like this is actually how I felt. And then like kind of rewriting that into the visualization. And like, that's how I'm going to start showing up. Or if it's something too, where you're having an interaction with someone, you'd be like, whoa, I would respond this way before, but now I'm going to respond this way. So, and just
mm,
rewriting and like that context.
okay. Yeah, because I think that's like a huge thing that will shift us really quickly. And and I think honestly, it's like even when I started to like realize or learn that like, oh, we do have beliefs and we we have story. Like the first time, and this was like a few years ago when I was like just getting into like personal development because I had joined that space, which I think many do before I found the spirituality space. And it was like, wait a minute, I have beliefs and like stories that are not true or that are created by others and me, and I can choose other ones. Like, it just was like such a one of those mind blowing moments where I'm just like, why weren't we taught this? Like, what? Like, one of those things that feel like foundational for our experience, but um, I think is much more popular nowadays. But when I had first a few years ago had realized that, I was like, holy shit.
I know. And
But
yeah, I know. It's like, whoa, why? Like, if
yeah,
someone else believes this, why am I staying stuck in this when I know that this also could be true? And I want to
true.
actually believe that. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Cool. Well, is there anything else you want to share with us that feels like your nudge to do, or do you feel like complete with our conversation?
No, this feels complete. Lots
Oh,
of great little
so good.
nuggets. So, thanks
I
for having
know.
me.
Thank you so much for this chat. I really looked forward to this. I think, and I always like we went so many different directions than I thought we would, which is just so
I
beautiful.
know.
I'm like, I love it. I'm like, listen, we're just gonna see what happens. And that's why I love the flow. Thank you for trusting in that and being here. And I will put all of the links or the pages on Instagram of Jess's contact. So if you're curious about Ahai and want a remote session, if you're curious and you're like, oh, I want to buy a home, or I think I want to buy a home in this year, and I'd love to work with someone like this, then you'll find all of her information below. And yeah, thank you so much, Jess.
Thank you.